Welcome to the First Down Legacy Podcast, your gateway to the exciting world of multifamily real estate investing. If you're eager to discover the strategies, insights, and success stories that will take your investment game to the next level, you've come to the right place. In each episode, we delve deep into the multifamily investing arena, sharing expert advice, interviews with industry leaders, and valuable tips to help you build your own legacy through multifamily real estate. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our podcast is your playbook for scoring big in the world of multifamily investing. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of multifamily properties, uncover the latest market trends, and learn from those who have already achieved remarkable success in this dynamic field. Get ready to huddle up and tackle multifamily investing like a pro. This is the First Down Legacy Podcast, where your journey towards financial prosperity begins. Let's get started. Okay, welcome to the First Down Legacy Podcast, Mr. Korey Harris. It's an honor to have you, a former coach, now consultant, moving into the real estate world. Welcome to the First Down Legacy Podcast.
Matt, it's a pleasure to join you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be, a guest speaker here on your platform. Love everything about it. I'm honored.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, it's the reason why we connected today is because we have a similar background. So I grew up playing football. I played for 10 years. I went to college and had a football scholarship, and I finished my degree that way. So something I'm very proud of. I know that it took many years of my life. So I dedicated many years of my life, to that one sport. And along the way, I learned many lessons on what it is as far as to adversity, to overcome adversity. The dedication and discipline that it takes in order to reach the next level. Is that something that you can share a little bit about, Korey?
Man, I guess we're long lost brothers or something for sure. I can talk about that, man. So my journey as far as basketball is concerned is similar to most. I'm an average guy, was not blessed with, an insane amount of athletic ability or talent. I actually didn't even get in touch with the game until I was 12. So that's pretty late compared to most people. I played every other sport growing up: football, ran track, baseball, soccer, but I never seen basketball before, especially growing up in the Southeast. Basketball was not a big deal in the 90s. This is more of a football state here in Georgia, where I'm from. So fell in love with it as soon as, I got my hands on a basketball for the first time. But obviously, I missed out on a lot of the formative years of training or just exposure to the game and the little nuances you pick up as a child when you're playing, in little leagues and whatnot. So long story short, I actually, from the time that I started trying to play competitively at 12 years old to graduating high school, never played organized basketball. I actually didn't play my first game of organized basketball until my freshman year of college. So my story is very unconventional. It's not like most, and I don't have anybody to blame. Like, it wasn't like, oh, the coach was being, he was showing favorites, or he was playing politics, or, we didn't have the money. No, I just was a day late, and a dollar short as far as, opportunities were concerned to learn the game. So after high school ended, I still had the dream. So I decided within myself that I was not going to let the fact that I wasn't going to go straight into college to play basketball on a scholarship, I wasn't going to let that deter me. I began to educate myself on the different divisions. So at that point, I didn't know anyone who ever went to college. I was the first person in my family to go. I didn't even know that there were other schools that weren't NCAA Division I. I thought everybody played on television, or the only schools you could play for were the ones that, came on ESPN. So I began to learn about D2, D3, JUCO, NAIA, ACCA, NCCAA, right? Christian colleges. So once I gained that wealth of understanding, I then began to start saying, okay, well, let me change my sight. Let me change up how I'm trying to attack this thing. And I had already, made some mistakes. I had been kicked out of college. I had an academic scholarship, lost that because I just wasn't mature. So when I came back home at 18 and started working with kids in the community, I had, first of all, a goal to make sure that those kids were going to make better decisions than I did, and also had the goal to go back to school and play. So I was a lot more driven than the average 18-year-old because I was already in debt, $40,000. I was already feeling like a failure because I'm back at home living in my mother's house when I'm supposed to be out on my own. And, you know, I had came to a point where I realized no one was going to save me, right? Like I needed to change up like how I saw myself, my identity, and what I felt like my purpose was for. So definitely
Yeah.
understand adversity. Definitely can relate to you and many others who, you know, are even going through it right now. And sports, it was definitely a way out for me.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that backstory there, Korey. I mean, as an 18-year-old facing so much adversity, you could have easily decided to, either give up or, find a new way out. And like you said, you began educating yourself on the different divisions to where I believe that opened, that broadened your perspective as far as like what I can accomplish and where you're going to set yourself out to do. So fast forward, you've been coaching kids since you were 18, right? You said you started with 6, 7-year-olds. How did that transition into now coaching or at least consulting young adults like high school kids, to help them for their future?
So I had to learn the business of basketball. And, it's funny that we're talking about how it grew. Like right now, a lot of the coaches that I consult, they want to understand that same process. They're struggling either to like scale their business or to figure out how to increase their reach and their visibility, right? They want to impact more kids. Coming out in 2008 and coaching like AAU basketball and recreational basketball, there was no one giving you the blueprint, right, of how to like organize and structure an LLC, or how you were supposed to market yourself, or how you were even supposed to make sure that the kids who came to you could get more resources than just what you could provide, like during a workout
Yeah.
or during a practice session. I didn't know how to get funding for my company, for my business. The crazy thing is I had a part-time job working as an after-school program teacher. Like I would help kids with their homework, keep them out of trouble, keep them off the street. And my boss, my manager, his name is Tony Van Dyke. He was the only family man I knew at the time. I never knew a man who was like married, had kids by the same woman. This dude was like Bill Cosby, before the trial. So, at the time, he was always giving me gems, always like trying to make sure I understood how to keep my eyes on higher things. And he said, Korey, like what you're doing here is not the end. Like you don't have to limit yourself to this part-time job. You can do more with what it seems to be is your passion, but you need to get organized about it. He said, so I want you to take the next year and save 6 months, right, of your monthly expenses. Like put that to the side, right? Whatever you make from this job, every 2 weeks you get a paycheck. Figure out, do the math so that you can have 6 months of your monthly expenses saved, because I want you to walk away from this job. He said, I want you to, at the time, you couldn't really go online. You had to go down to the courthouse or you had to do some paperwork physically. But he said, I want you to do your paperwork to create a real LLC, right? Like it's not enough for you to say, my company is called this or that, or my training business is XYZ, but it's not legal. He was like, no, make it real, get it on paper. And so those are my two goals. And I worked there for another year. I followed everything that he told me to do. I got my LLC and I walked off that job. And from then on, I just began to continue learning more, not just about how to impact players, but how to make sure that I was putting down the right building blocks to grow. And I got a mentor. That was a huge part of scaling my business, by the name of Gannon Baker, who at the time was doing Nike Skill Academies with Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Chris Paul, so many others. And I began to travel the country, like just interning, like not getting paid a lot of times, basically sweat equity, learning hard lessons, making mistakes, but seeing how he had a full-fledged service-based business, as well as he had products, training manuals, books, DVDs. It expanded my train of thought to understand that I could be more. Like I don't have to just settle for what's down here and think that getting $100 for a training session is the greatest thing ever. No, there's more than one way to impact the masses. So I wrote my first two books at the age of, I think, 23 and 24. I also began to start traveling on my own, doing camps, training players in different states and different regions. And then, I used social media because I was young enough to still understand it, but old enough to not be like entrapped by it and addicted to it like so many people. So, YouTube was big for me. And of course, over time, if you do good work, I think that good things happen. I don't believe in luck. I believe you create your own luck. And if you treat people with respect and you honor the opportunity to work with people, more things come. So as of now, my goal is just to help the next generation of coaches kind of avoid the same pitfalls that maybe I had to struggle with. I still coach. I coach on the high school level currently. Like I said, most recently I was coaching professionally overseas. And of course, I still do skill development training.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So through that time, there must have been, a lot of self-development, right? A lot of investing in yourself, like believing in yourself, most importantly. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having those individuals like you did, like Mr. Van Dyke, and then your mentor later on to kind of get you going on the right path?
Man, it's so crazy, Matthew. Like, I didn't realize how I was already being impacted by the people that I was allowing in my circle before I decided to try to change the circle. Like, when you're not aware of something, it's not that there's no decisions being made, it's just the decision is being made for you, right? So when you say, well, I don't know anyone, or I don't have a mentor, or I don't have anyone that could influence me, you're already being influenced. You just probably aren't paying close enough attention, whether that's the people on your job, your family members, your neighbors, the friend group that you have. Like, I already had people that were like, speaking into my life, if that makes sense. And so when I started really getting focused about growing my business, I had to say to myself, maybe some of these people are good in some areas, but I should not see them as the end all be all. Like, everyone can't speak to every part of my life. I need to start compartmentalizing and categorizing my associates, my friend groups, my family members. So, my mother couldn't give me financial advice. She couldn't give me business advice. That's cool. Like, she gave me the type of advice I needed for life, right? Maybe my friends were there for me when I needed somebody to listen to me, but they couldn't speak into the area where I needed to keep that pilot light going when I was losing my motivation, where my business was concerned. So I think it's super important. And I think that everyone, no matter what your area of focus is, you need to have mentors. You need to have someone that you could come to for some type of like sage wisdom and information and knowledge. And then if you can't find someone physically, you have to also have the creativity to find pseudo mentors, right? So like a lot of reading, I think is the key to growth. I'm a voracious reader. I'm always trying to take in information, whether it's by listening to an audiobook while I drive, or actually sitting down to grab a hard copy book and turn pages. I think that right there separated me from a lot of the people who were my age and maybe had the same desires, but they just weren't willing to do that. And then honestly, when you are someone who is relentless, you're going to, again, create your own luck. Like, I always tell this story to my players, or I ask them this question. I say, hey, if I was on the side of the road and I had a sign up saying, pull over and I'll give you $20, would you pull over? Most of them, 9 times out of 10, they all say no. They're like, well, like, you could be crazy. You could, want to harm me. You could want to do something the opposite of give me 20. Like, my life could be in danger. I say, exactly, right? Offering you pleasure is not going to persuade you to do something that you're not sure of. But and then I ask him, I say, well, what if you saw me like breaking my back, like jacking my car up on the side of a grassy hill? I'm trying to change the tire and I'm sweating and I got a baby in the backseat crying, or you see a woman yelling at me while I'm trying to get the car jacked up and I'm looking at her like, what do you want me to do? Like, 9 times out of 10, they all say, man, yeah, bro, I probably stop because you look like you need some help. I say, well, don't you think that that's how life is? Like, if people see that you're constantly working away, they're going to feel more motivated to want to contribute, whether that's just tell you to keep going, or compliment you, or give you a like or a follow, or donate, or just give you their time and their energy. It doesn't make sense when you try to buy people or you try to convince people to give you that time and that energy, even if it is a mentor. they've got to see something in you already. No one
Yeah.
wants to build anybody. Like, you don't pick a spouse and say like, girl, I want to make you into a star. Like, what? Like, no, you want to be with somebody that you feel like already is a star, right? And
Yeah.
y'all just gonna shine brighter together. So, for me, that was my motto, was like, I never want to be seen kind of like with my hand out. I always want to be seen busy. I want you to come across, like, cross my path and I'm working, right? So there were so many people that helped me outside of just Mr. Van Dyke and Gannon Baker that I can't even remember right now, and I
Yeah.
apologize for that, but it was simply because, God, I think he brings you with people, he connects you with people that have something in the area where maybe you've already been working, and they're supposed to just be that puzzle piece to connect you.
Yeah, amazing. It's I've had some experiences like that myself, to where, you just start putting the right energy out into the universe, right? Going toward doing things that others won't do, like
Yep.
reading through breaks and lunches, listening to audiobooks here and there. And then naturally, the world starts presenting these individuals that
There
can
you go.
help you achieve or get to your goal, not necessarily a lot faster, but a clearer path to
Right.
to what's next. Um, so before we get to what you're currently doing in today's world, I kind of want to talk about. You mentioned that at 18 years old you find yourself in debt. You
Mhm.
have individuals like Mr. Van Dyke. What kind of like financial literacy or financial education did you start implying,
Yeah.
in order to get you ahead over time? Can you talk a little bit about that, right? Like that initial push is not
Yeah.
enough. It has to be sustained in order to create something.
For sure. No, that's a great question, Matt. Like, the one of the biggest things that I wish I would have learned and understood growing up was like the power of like investment and compound interest. They teach that in school for like a day. They brush through it, and then they get right back to algebra and geometry and Euclidean this and whatever, and it's like, man, I wish we actually would have focused more so on the things that I'm going to be using in the real world. So I would say number one is compounding interest. Once I understood the power of that, it completely changed my life. So yes, I got kicked out of school. I went to Hofstra University straight out of high school on an engineering scholarship. Don't ask me how I got it. I cheated my way through high school. I was skipping class every day, but I still had a pretty good GPA. And I was just naturally smart, but I lacked the habits that make you successful, if that makes
Yep,
sense. And
of course.
like most people, you can't skate by in college because, it's all on you, right? So when I came home, I started reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon. Those two books changed the way I think about everything. Uh-oh, there we
You
go.
mean this one right here?
Yes, sir. That one right there.
Yes, sir.
So yeah,
Yeah.
The Richest Man in Babylon and Rich Dad Poor Dad opened my eyes to specifically, like, let's say I made $100, a week. I'm just making something up. I started saying, okay, well, what if I took, before I even think about shoes or clothes or going out to eat, what if I took a portion of this out and put it aside? Now, at the time, being 18, all I had was a savings account with
Yeah.
Wachovia, back in the day before it became Wells Fargo. And so I
Okay.
said, well, what if I put 20% of this $100 in this savings account, pay my bills, and then live off the rest? So I started doing that, and then I learned, like, okay, well, this is what it's like to have, a little safety net. This is what it's
Mhm.
like to have an expense account, or to have an account for if I do want to travel, if I want to go see my mentor when he's on the West Coast, I can save up for this now, so that when it comes, I'm not scratching and clawing trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. That was actually how I went to my very first Nike event, where I became a certified trainer. I saw the date online. I Google searched it, and I was using the principles from Rich Dad Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon, and I was able to save up like $3,500. It took me a year to do it because I wasn't making much money. Then, of course, after that, I started looking into actually like becoming way more aggressive. So, picking up side hustles, stealing back my time, right? So like not watching television. The biggest form of financial literacy I can say that I got that actually isn't just only about money. I think it's broad, but it affects money. It affects how you see finances. Is when I learned that time does not actually equal money. Because growing up, everybody said time is money, time is money. And I was taught as I was reading these books that time is actually more valuable than money. And maybe I'm not educating some of the people watching this, but maybe there's one person that's never thought about it this way. Like, what if Matthew and I offered you guys who are watching this $1 million? Would you take it? Sure, you would. But what if we said, when you take the million, you've got to let one of us put a gun to your head and you're going to lose your life today? You say, you guys can keep the meal. Why? Because you value the time that you have left on this earth over that $1 million. What if we said, hey, we're going to take one of your loved ones. You can live with the million, but we got to kill somebody you love. You would easily say, hey, keep the money. Why? Because a loved one in a relationship is more valuable than that $1 million. So if we know that life and time, also relationships, are more valuable than money, then it seems like we have it upside down, like our perspective is wrong. And so I began to say to myself, let me put more time into actually like fostering better relationships, better like networking skills. And then let me also like try to be more efficient with my time in my business. So rather than chasing after one client at a time, I began to start learning like how to be a better group trainer or group coach, like how to change my vernacular and speak and teach things in like bite size and cues so that I could still be clear and concise, but not waste anyone's time or lose their focus, if that makes sense. I had to create pricing packages that also would like allow people to want to book multiple sessions up front instead of like only offering one-offs, so that I could be more efficient with my time and make a lot more money up front rather than, just always settling for pennies, if that makes sense. I then had to become more knowledgeable in what services I could offer as a coach so that I could increase my value. So I would say the understanding compounding interest, understanding the 80-20 rule, taking, 20% of everything I earn and then investing it or saving it and then living off the 80. Obviously, you can change those percentages if you make more money. I know some people who have it flipped opposite, where they will save or invest 80% and then they can live off 20% because they're making so much money. That's amazing. I would love to get to that point, right? Sure. And then, of course, understanding the value of time. Like, time is just infinitely more valuable than money. Money is an output, like it's a result. You get it because of certain laws and principles that you're just operating by. It's not the thing you should actually be chasing, right? I almost see money like as spiritual. So if I'm operating on a higher plane and I'm living a certain way, but I'm operating in business with integrity and I understand like the input, then it's just a byproduct. I'm gonna get that back. And I don't have time to get into it because I don't want to waste your time, Matt, or the viewers' time. But the power of OPM, other people's money, right? I had such a bad understanding of debt when I was young and in my environment growing up because of just how we were raised as minorities. Like, we always thought that debt was terrible, it's evil. But as I grew up in business, I started to learn that it's very hard to build a business without debt. So I began to seek out information on credit and how to build that so that I could use maybe a little bit of debt up front to build an empire on the back end. So hopefully that helps somebody out there that's watching.
Oh, for sure. I know 100% it will, man. I mean, just hearing you speak about it, it's giving me some insight on how to scale my business, and the beginnings of what it takes to kind of put the pieces together. I like how you said, when you're operating on these principles, the money is just a byproduct. Like, it's gonna come, right? It's gonna come in whatever shape or form, right? Whether it's through relationships, whether it's through the compounding interest or just an exact result of the services that you're putting out. That's 100%. That's how it should be. Because when you're locked in, especially starting, when you're locked in and you're not necessarily reaping any rewards up front for it, you can get distracted, right? You can get sidetracked into believing or thinking that you're not being successful, that your current habits is not working. But the way you worded it, man, is perfectly put. Um, so I appreciate that. Thank you for that, Korey.
All good, man. All good.
Excuse the interruption, but I have a very important message for each and every one of you. If you've made it through the video this far, it could only mean that you are ready to take your multifamily career to the next level. If you book a call with me in the link below, I can show you step by step on how I've been able to create passive income, build a legacy I've always wanted, and turn my dreams into a reality. Book a call with me now, and I too can show you how to align your purpose through multifamily investing. Let's go.
So fast forward, right? You spent some time overseas. How far? How long were you overseas?
So I left for Beijing, China in 2018, and I didn't come home till 2021.
Okay. And was that right before? I'm sorry, that was right after COVID, right? So during that whole time, you were out there experiencing that.
Yeah. That was I could write a book on that one. But it was crazy. It was by choice. So we can take that however you want to go. We just let me know.
Okay. Yeah. So at this point, when you went overseas, did you meet your wife then, or did you know her before? How did that happen for you?
Yeah. So crazy story, man. I met my wife when I was training in Atlanta, Georgia, back in this might have been 2015, 2016. She was a client. So, at the time she was playing ball. I didn't even think anything of her other than like it's another client, right? And she only stayed for that one workout, that one day. She was supposed to come back for 2 sessions, and the session was so much that she was like, nah, like I'm good. She tapped out, and her and her family, they went back home. And so over the years, I always support all my clients. I try my best to like keep up with their careers and their successes. So I would like post, if I saw they, broke a record or scored a bunch of points or whatnot, check in on them, you know what I mean? Ask them like if there was something I could pray for or whatever. And so we hadn't talked for, it was probably a little before that, maybe like 2013, 2014, but it had been like maybe 4 years, 5 years at the most since we communicated. And like I said, I went back to college late. So I was playing in my senior year of college, and I broke or fractured my tibia. And I was out for a minute and just kind of feeling down. I was like, one of the better players on my team. And so I kind of felt like I was letting them down. And she messaged me out of the blue and was just like encouraging me because she had been dealing with a back injury that was very serious. And so, injured athletes always have like a different bond than those who have never gone through something that debilitates you. You know what I mean? It's like a language only you two can speak. So, she was sending me scriptures, letting me know that, this will pass. Like it's about your mindset. And, I was just attracted to the fact that she was going beneath like the surface of everyone that kind of knew me at the time. They always thought I was like, not human. Like I was just always positive and made of steel or something. I'm sure you can attest to that. Like people who don't play sports, or maybe they do, but they just know you as a coach or a trainer or an athlete, they think of you as like, you don't have any problems. And, she was like, no, I know where you probably are mentally. And so we just developed a friendship at first for about a year. And, I let her know, like, I was attracted to the simple fact that she was different. And, we took it one step at a time. And so this was long distance. We were not like even in the same city or same state. I was all the way up in North Dakota playing basketball there for a small college. And so when I went to China, we actually had split. So she was still in Georgia. I was all the way out in Beijing, but we just kept in touch. And then in 2019, we were like, man, let's just stop playing, and take this thing a lot more serious. So she actually came out for a little bit, spent some time there. It's her first time leaving the country, so
Amazing.
that meant a
Yeah.
lot to me, and as soon as I got back, man, just put a ring on it.
Wow, that's amazing, Korey. The reason why I asked, obviously it's very intimate and personal, so thank you for sharing that. But the reason why I ask is because I'm sure in today's ventures, like you mentioned, you two just acquired your first multifamily or looking to
Yep.
acquire your first multifamily. So um, there's that bond and that partnership that you need, right? As
Right.
far as moving forward in life's direction. So that's the reason why I asked about your
Gotcha.
wife, because I'm sure she plays a big role in what you're accomplishing today.
100%, 100%. You got to have the right partner. Got to be, locked in step with somebody who understands you, but also can like buffer you a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I be taking risks. I be ready. I be like, oh man, I just saw this YouTube video. They said I could do this, da 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 da. And she's like, hold on, like, let's talk about it a little bit. Then when she gets excited, I can kind of like buffer her a little. So it's it's
Okay,
it's cool, man. It's dope. It's a dope experience.
amazing, Korey. Do you currently have any children?
Not yet, not yet. We're waiting. We just want to get things settled, get things going, and then of
Yeah,
course, like just enjoy each other for a little bit. You
of
know what I
course.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, 100%, bro. I definitely encourage you guys do that first before you
Okay.
start having kids. uh,
Sound like you got
so
some experience.
Yeah, I do, brother. I do.
Okay.
I got the little one running around right now. She was in the
All right.
background. She's
That's good.
a
That's what's
year
up.
and like 8 months now.
That's what's up. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Korey. So let's talk about today's ventures, man. So where
Okay.
where did you learn about multifamily and how did you start up? From the beginning, as far as
Yeah.
like doing your research, connecting with brokers. How did that happen for you?
So in 2020, I was still in my first year coaching in China. This was the first time I ever came into like some real money. And of course, as a man, when you finally hit a lick, you like, okay, what now? Because you're so used to being in survival mode and trying to figure things out that now you have all of this space in your mind to get creative. And I'm living abroad. It was COVID at the time, so we're all trapped in our hotel. We actually were in a bubble in the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, similar to the NBA bubble, where they lived as players for I think like majority of their year on a resort. So we were on a resort of some sort, but it wasn't nice like theirs. And anyway, YouTube was my best friend. Like every day, I'm just researching, cryptocurrency. I'm looking into real estate, anything and everything that seems to be profitable or make money, right? I'm watching Earn Your Leisure and all these other podcasts, So I started through Earn Your Leisure really getting invested in real estate. And I started seeing that multifamily units were popular, like it was the way to go. And you shouldn't buy anything with just one door. And that's what I kept hearing. And I'm like, okay, when I get home, like that's what I want to do. That's the first thing I'm going to purchase. Of course, no, like wifey and I, we needed somewhere to, hang our head and to go to bed every night. So I'm like, all right, before I get ahead of myself, let's make sure we're good. So we got a condo and we just kind of said, all right, this will be our first investment property. Because if I get another job or we move, we can rent it out. So, made some
Yeah.
decisions a little quick, jumped the gun, but all in all, it was worth it. But I never stopped researching the other things that I was kind of like interested in while I was in China. And
Yep.
long story short, a few months ago, I was wondering to myself, like, how can I create an extra stream of income without having to go and find another lump sum of cash, right?
Okay.
Like, obviously, you need money to make money. So
Yep.
I said, okay, well, what about all of this money that I'm paying every month for my mortgage? Like I've heard people say things like they took out a loan, against their home, or
Yep.
they took out a line of credit. And so I didn't know the terminology. I didn't really know anything other than I had heard some stuff. And so I researched and I found out it was called a HELOC, home
Okay.
equity line of credit.
Yep.
And I was listening to Myron Golden, who's very popular on YouTube. He does a lot of business consulting, and he talks about a lot of financial secrets and wealth secrets. And he actually broke it down in one of his seminars. And so I'm like, this is not a coincidence that I'm already researching this, and he's talking about this. So I went all in. I contacted our real estate agent who found this condo for us that we live in now. Said, man, what could you tell me about a HELOC? Like, what are my options? How do I apply for it? And he connected me with a underwriter and some, a loan officer or whatever you call it, and a broker. And basically they gave me the paperwork. I filled out the preliminary stuff, and now we're knee deep in it. We're at the point where we're going to start like looking at some actual properties. So it's one of those things, man. I was scared shitless. Like, okay, do I really want to jump off the porch with this? Do I really want to, try something that could put my family at risk? Because I don't know, like, I don't have any experience, if that makes sense. But I couldn't find any red flags. Basically, everything I kept seeing was, if you're wise about it, you move slow, and you don't try to go out and bite off more than you can chew with like some huge property or a fixer upper. Just start with something simple. You should be straight. So that's where we're at with it. Obviously we thought we would start with this particular property being our first rental property. Like, we would have to move because I'd get another coaching job. But we just got aggressive with it in the last 3 to 6 months and said, no, even if we're here, let's keep going with this thing.
Yeah, I love it, bro. I love it because essentially when you're talking about your biggest asset is time, this is what you're doing right now is you're preparing yourself for that 3 to 5 year, essentially business plan. You know what I mean? Like you're able to acquire multifamily now, and as time progresses, whether it is a new coaching gig or maybe your consulting business, takes you across the country. You're now double dipping, right? Now you got your personal residence that you're in right now, and then the multifamily. So you say you started looking at properties. Now, what does that look like for you and your wife? Like, are you guys, looking to stay within the same state? Are you guys willing to invest outside of state? What does that conversation look like?
Man, that's a great question. So we were just having conversations with Delvin Barfield, who's our real estate agent here in Atlanta. And he was giving me a lot of insight on, you need to be willing to look outside the city. Specifically Atlanta itself is such a overpopulated area already. And the market value of properties is through the roof. Like, I would guess that LA is probably way more expensive, or maybe some other cities like New York. But, here, just to get in the game is going to cost you, a lot of skin. So it's like, go outside the city, maybe go to a college town like Athens, where UGA is at, or, somewhere else where maybe it's a little bit slower. You might have some families that aren't looking to move within the next, 3 to 5 years. Like, they want to raise their kids there, they want to be there for a while. And so that's going to bring you some consistent revenue. And you're not going to have like a lot of just the upfront costs to either like build it up or renovate it, or even like maybe bring it up to code, because a lot of stuff here in the city is modernized, right? And if it's older, they want it to look modern. So that's kind of like our vision right now, is to maybe go somewhere outside of the city. We would even go to another state. Like, we've talked about maybe going to Birmingham, Alabama, or other just neighboring states within the Southeast, and then possibly like hiring a manager or a management company where we wouldn't have to be there physically on site as the landlords. Someone else who, has a lot more experience than us could do that. So hopefully that helps somebody who's, having certain ideas or trying to make plans to do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, 100%. I'm looking to add, to my personal portfolio, like a 4 unit, like a 5 to 6 unit, something like that. So when you start talking to loan officers, so you can essentially house hack a 1 to 4 unit. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's essentially you get approved for a residential loan, whether it's FHA or a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae loan, and essentially the terms are that you have to live there for about a year, like in one of the units, before you can rent it out. As individuals, you can sublease the unit. It's still under your name and things like that. So you can definitely house hack that way. But
Okay.
once it's more 4 units, it's now considered a commercial property and more of an investment opportunity. So you have to come in with at least like 15% down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's some there's some states out there where you can find some decent properties. For example, I was looking at one in Texas. They were only asking about 550. So with
Oh
15%
wow.
down, 15% down, it was a 6 unit. I believe it was like 106,000, 106,
Okay.
106K. But even then, it's like that. It's a huge difference from being able to put 5% down on a
Right.
FHA or a Fannie Mae compared to 15% down. Now you're in 100Ks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to be very strategic onto how you want to acquire that property. At least for the upfront cost, like you said, like you want to mitigate all that risk.
Yeah.
Not having to do much of the you want to right that you can go ahead and rent out and start making it you start making minimum the mortgage payment and then surplus some a
Right.
little bit of cash flow. But even that
Right.
cash flow, it's not guaranteed like for the first couple of years, because you need to
Right.
build up that reserves in case you need to renovate or fix any plumbing, any roofing issues, or
Right.
whatever the case. But yeah, I'm glad that you started that process. It's an exciting process, and at least you already have a strategic opportunity with your current residence right now. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of in a similar boat, just as a
Okay.
similar boat. So our house here in California, we're able to rent this out to Section 8 for about like
Mm.
$3,200 to $3,500, which is about like 1,500 plus of what we currently pay for the mortgage.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm steady convincing the wife, like, hey, this is the right move. Like, we need to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Like, what are we waiting on? But you know how that goes, bro, with the wife. But no, but
Yeah.
in the planning, knowing that I do have this in my back pocket as a way to continue to build. It's good to know. It's good that, like, the strategy is there. It's just about executing it at the right time.
How did you get into it? What was your pathway into real estate?
Yeah, man. So I started sometime last year in 2023. I started, with a 3-day seminar on learning on what multifamily syndications are. So that right there, man, it blew my mind. Just on how you're able to acquire these 200 plus units, 100 plus units, using other people's money.
Mm.
Raising capital, structuring your partnerships with syndications, like having a sponsor on the deal. You know, an asset manager, contacting the local property managers, that are going to be essentially uh, like running the business plan according to your numbers, right? So my whole thing is learning how to underwrite these deals to whether I'm able to read the financials and properly, comprehend that where it lacks and where we can actually make money on this deal.
Mm.
Um, so in doing so, like going to the seminar for 3 days, I immediately the like the next day the seminar was over, I immediately met a group of individuals who are acquiring commercial real estate, from like storage units to assisted livings, to mobile home parks to multifamily. Um, so immediately, like I got in the circle with them,
Okay.
because it was more of a learning experience for me. It's like being able to talk this language over and over with these individuals who are already you know successful and like have already processed some experience doing these deals. uh it catapults my learning experience, or my learning curve, I should say, by
Right.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So just through those connections, I was able to meet this group out in Miami, Florida, who are currently syndicating a real estate deal, a multifamily deal out in Greenville, South Carolina. And
Okay.
essentially, connecting with them, they gave me an opportunity to raise capital for their deal. And
Wow.
yeah, man. So it's a huge opportunity. But as my first campaign, as my first capital raise, it was difficult to find sophisticated investors, which is in other terms an accredited investor.
Okay.
Right? If you know what that term is individuals who make $200,000 or more, or have a year, or have $1 million worth of net worth, not including their primary residence. So, right. So from my beginning, like starting for where I did, I don't really have a
Yeah,
list of
yeah,
individuals who fit that criteria, who fit that criteria. So since then till now, I just kind of been connecting with individuals like yourself here, um, people who do fit that sophisticated accredited status, so I'm able to build that campaign for future deals to come. So if
gotcha.
I'm able to be a part of a future deal, I have an opportunity to present. But yeah, man, it just takes time, right? As far as building my credibility and being able to offer these opportunities to individuals who don't see themselves operating businesses or multifamily apartments, like I see myself doing here in the near future. Um, these individuals just looking for somewhere to park their money, compared to a bank where they're
Yep.
earning 2 to 3% interest, or high savings, right? High yield savings account where they
Yeah.
earn maybe about 4 to 5%. So
Yeah.
essentially, it's a great investment opportunity for, again, individuals who are looking to passively build their wealth.
Wow, that's amazing though. That's amazing. So basically you just put yourself in the right room, and you also had the right perspective, like you had an open mind. You were aggressively looking to learn, and boom. Okay. Got you. Got
Yeah,
you.
for sure. But again, I'm looking to acquire, my a personal multifamily, like a small
Hmm.
4 to 6 unit, to where I can
Okay.
start building that portfolio for my family. You know,
Yes, sir.
um, the comparisons from that to being a general partner on a big deal like the one in Greenville, South Carolina, there's a huge difference. I mean, the
Right,
same
right.
concepts, but a huge difference, right?
Okay.
So, like you said, it would be more of hiring through Thumbtack or Google Property Management, paying them the 5 to 10% fee, whatever the case is,
Yeah.
uh, in order to upkeep your property. And then you gotta, when you do your underwriting, as far as like estimating your revenue on that deal, you got to put those things into consideration as far as the operating expenses. And so just having a bit of understanding is a big help. Navigating in this space. There's an individual by the name of Hans that I connected with here. He's a multifamily real estate professional. He was telling me, he was saying you will never take action if you're waiting to figure out every single little thing. He's like, as
Mhm.
long as you have 70% of the information, you know, you got to take action.
Wow.
So,
I like that.
so that's, yeah, man, that's something very beneficial that that I begin to take into consideration, to where it's like, okay, I have my total revenue, I have my operating expenses, I have the net operating income, and then I have my debt service, right? As far as like what I need to pay after my operations are paid, and that will give you my cash flow. So as long as
Mm.
you have those numbers, like at least a general idea of what they look like, you can then know whether it's a good investment opportunity or not.
Got you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch a playback of this recording so I can make sure I get all those down. I need all those gems you just dropped.
Yeah, man. So it seems like a lot, especially when you don't know, like when you're just learning the language. It seems like what is this net operating income? Like, but it's very simplified. You look at the financials, you look at a P&L, very simplified. It's like, how much
Okay.
do they currently make? So, okay, how much does it take to operate it? Okay. So after operations, how much am I left with to pay my mortgage, right? And you want to do this on
Mhm.
an annual basis, so that you have what the year would look like. Because if you only have 2 3 months worth of things, like, you can annualize those numbers, but it would be a very general number at that point. It won't be accurate. So
Right.
those are good things to look at, man. Currently in your buy box, right? You said you looking to stay in the state or maybe in the nearby states. Uh, what you know what does that property look like for you? Does it look like a 2 to 3 unit, a fourplex? Because utilizing that one of four units,
Mm.
you can essentially do what you're planning as far as renting out your current condo, move to a nearby state,
Yeah.
house hack it, right? Live in it for about a year, a little less than a year, and then you keep, you can keep doing that.
Yeah. Ideally, it would be, a fourplex, a quadruplex, simply because you always want to see how far you can take something. You want to max it out, right? I want to make as much money as I can, with this thing. And I feel like that's what we all should do because it gives us more resources to help the next person. So, yeah, I mean, if we did have to move, if we did have to relocate, I think that, especially with like my wife's flexibility with her actual calling and her career and her profession, she's a counselor. Like, she's going to be able to impact people no matter where she goes. And obviously you need her okay. Like, you need to be on the same page if it's going to work. But I think because of that, it makes what we're trying to do simple. It'd be different if, she was landlocked to a certain job that required her to be here. Same thing with me. I could pick up and go train players in another state. It might not be as big and as fast and as, uh, overflowing with high level athletes as Atlanta and some other places, especially with basketball. But that's why you build, right? So that you can always go and make that same impact somewhere else, put your thumbprint down. So yeah, I think for sure we would look to do a quadruplex, a fourplex. And if we did have to move and it'd be somewhere within the Southeast, a neighboring state, it'd be a no brainer for us.
Yeah, man. And I feel like you already have that advantage, as far as like knowing what it takes to give a little bit, but in return you're gaining, what I'm saying, you're laying on the long term.
Yep.
One of my guys here, Omar, he mentioned the other day, he said this is how business works. He's like, you got to reinvest all of it back into
Mhm.
it until it's stabilized enough to, and then go seek profit. You know, so that right there, man, coming from, from a young successful individual, it's like, man, bro, like you got so much more to pour before you even
Yeah.
start reaping some success. I would say I'm not in it for like a quick come up,
Right.
hit a click or whatever, So I'm
Right.
not I'm not in it for that. But like, I essentially just over time, when I have had build such a portfolio, right, such a diversified portfolio, that now I'm not only reaping the rewards from it, but also, my children and my generations to come.
Yes, sir.
That's essentially the biggest goal for me.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, I think anything that you are going to build, and you want it to be substantial, you got to build it slow. If you
Yeah.
build it too fast, you're going to overlook something, or there's going to be things that you might have to go back and try to correct. And, I don't want to ever risk anything, especially that's connected to myself or my family, it falling apart, at the seams, or putting us at risk. So definitely want to make sure that we take our time with it.
Yeah. Yeah, Korey. Well, hey, brother, it was an honor to have you on the First Down Legacy podcast. I look forward to connecting with you on all socials, right? On your Instagram, Facebook. I'll make sure to give you a follow there. But I really appreciate your time, Korey.
Man, appreciate you, Matt. It was a pleasure and an honor for everybody watching. Please check us out at transitionbball.com, and then you can follow us on all social platforms at The Transition. And I'm also on there with my personal profile at Korey Harris, Korey Harris, all together. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, for sure, brother. Looking forward to seeing, in the next couple months how your multifamily, how you've been able to acquire it, and kind of see where
Sure.
you're at there. All right. So I'll check in with you, Korey. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Matt.
All right, brother. Bless up.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the First Down Legacy Podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration for your multifamily investing journey. Remember, your legacy in multifamily investing is within reach. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep building your success story. We look forward to having you back with us for more game-changing strategies and stories in the multifamily investing world. Until then, keep the momentum going and keep building that legacy. This is the First Down Legacy Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.